Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Did you know that you actually have the option to either be a sugar burner or a fat burner? It's called having a metabolic advantage, as Dr. Ben Beekman would put it. You can actually burn your own stored body fat for fuel. On this show, we talk about ketogenesis, fasting, biohacking, all with the goal of optimal body composition for longevity and having the highest possible quality of life. I hope you enjoy these interviews and solo casts that I present to you, all with this goal in mind. Hey you guys, welcome back to Fast Keto. I'm so excited to have Jessica Reynolds joining us today. I recently got to meet Jessica at KetoCon. We were both on a panel together at the end of the show. And Jessica is a ketogenic lifestyle coach. She's certified in holistic nutrition and cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders. She herself struggled with bulimia, anorexia, and compulsive eating for 31 years before she discovered keto. She's now been in recovery for over 3.5 years and spends most of her time pursuing her passion, which is to spread the word that there is hope, healing, and recovery from eating disorders by just eating real food. She also lost 135 pounds, got off of medication for depression, anxiety, and bladder disease, and improved her migraines by eating a well-formulated ketogenic diet. Jessica's story has been featured in First for Women, Women's World, and she has written articles for Keto Evangelist and ketogenic.com. She was a speaker on Jimmy Moore's 12th annual Low Carb and KetoCon 2019. You can follow her on Facebook or Instagram at Coach Jessica. That's Coach and then Jessica, JessYca, and learn more about her coaching at ketoevangelistcoaching.com/Jessica Reynolds, and I'll put that link in the show notes for the episode. So I really enjoyed talking with Jessica about her work and her passion, and she was on a podcast that we mentioned in the show as well. If you want to hear more about her actual personal story, she goes into quite a bit of detail on another podcast that I'll mention and also link to in the show notes, which is the Keto Savage podcast, and you can go and listen to her full story. On today's episode, we really focus a lot more on talking a little bit about her story, but a lot more on just takeaways and what are sort of things that people can implement in order to add more of these techniques into their lives, into understanding how she coaches and works with her clients, and just immediate tools and takeaways for listeners, because she already covered her full story quite in depth, and it's quite a compelling episode if you want to go listen to that on the Keto Savage podcast. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with someone that you think might enjoy it as well, and leave me a rating anytime you have a moment, because it helps me to be able to produce these episodes for you and produce more and more content. And I just love being here with you guys each week. So hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and sending you lots of love. All right, guys. Now, I know you're like me. You love to budget and save money, but also feed your families the most high quality, delicious tasting food that is super nutrient dense. Now that's why I love ButcherBox. They make all of this super affordable by taking out the middleman, grocery stores, and being able to purchase directly from a collective of ranches. This way we support buying high quality grass-fed and finished beef, free-range organic chicken that's free of antibiotics, heritage breed pork, wild-caught Alaskan sockeye salmon, all of this so affordably by being able to buy directly from the ranchers and fishermen. Now, ButcherBox is offering a very special deal for listeners of Fast Keto. If you go to butcherbox.com/fastketo, new members can receive 2 pounds of ground beef, 2 pounds of bacon for free, plus $20 off your first box just by going to butcherbox.com/fastketo. That's butcherbox.com/fastketo. Try them out. I absolutely love what they do and how affordable they make it to have grass-fed, grass-finished beef and such high-quality foods shipped directly to your door, saving time and money from having to go to the grocery store and just being able to provide really high-quality, nutrient-dense food for our families. So that's butcherbox.com/fastketo. Let me know if you try them out. They provide absolutely delicious meat. I love receiving my box every month, and I know that you will too. Good morning, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here and joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me, Vanessa. I really appreciate it.
Now, where are you coming to us from today? I mean, I met you in Austin, but I'm not sure if that's your home base or...
Yeah, I'm actually in Virginia, Southern Virginia. So a little ways from Austin, but I work for Keto Evangelist and they put on that event, so I'm always there for that.
Well, congratulations on that fantastic event. KetoCon was incredible this year, even more than last year.
Yeah, it really has grown. It was very exciting.
So for anyone who may be new to the keto space or may not know of your story, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Well, I have been on a ketogenic diet for the last 3.5 years, a little over that. My whole family is keto. I have been a ketogenic lifestyle coach. I specifically help people with eating disorders, and I've done that for about the last 2.5 years. My background is that I have 31 years of an eating disorder that I am recovering from, and really, I had a lot of therapy over the years and went through a lot of treatments, and I just couldn't seem to get well no matter what I did. And then I found keto, and my ketogenic diet, it was the missing piece of the puzzle for me for healing and for wellness. And for me, that's a miracle. I thought I was 41 when I started keto, and I thought that I was too far gone. I just thought I've been sick for too long. I started, I was bulimic at age 11. And I just felt like it was part of my identity and there was no way that I could change. And this lifestyle changing my eating completely and getting what I call food sober has completely changed my life. And 3.5 years later, I don't binge, I don't purge, I don't compulsively overeat. And I did struggle with kind of all the eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, compulsive overeating at different times in my life. So I've been through struggles with all of those, but I'm free. And my mission in life now is to tell other people that there's hope for them.
That's amazing. And how did you first find keto? I mean, it's so cool to hear that your whole family is keto. I'm a little bit jealous. That's amazing. But how did you guys sort of get started on it?
Well, I was first to actually go keto. My husband and I have been together for a really, really long time, almost 3 decades. So he's been with me through a lot of different diets, lots and lots, really all of them. And at the point where I found keto, I was the sickest I've ever been, mentally, emotionally, physically. I was at my highest weight. I hadn't weighed in forever. I finally did because I was trying to ignore it, but I was 309 pounds. And that is coming from my low during the anorexic years at 115. And so there's this huge swing in my weight over 30 years, but I was on the high end and I had really just given in to compulsive overeating. I had withdrawn from life because I was unhealthy and I felt bad all the time. I really just stopped participating in life. I wasn't on social media even at all. It's almost like I just disappeared off the face of the earth. So at some point at that high weight, it was hard for me to walk around the house. It was hard for me to walk up the stairs, to do basic things. I remember Mike had to put my shoes on for me because I couldn't really bend down and tie them. I mean, it had gotten really bad. And in all our years together, he realized this was different. This was a new extreme, that it had been building for kind of over 5 years to get to that point. I was severely depressed. I was on about 17 pills a day for depression, anxiety, mood disorder, sleep disorder, bladder disease, and I was on shots for migraine. I'm sure there's more in there too. That's just what I can think of. But I was taking all those things daily, multiple times a day, and I was still not functioning. And I started to wake up in the middle of the night gasping for air. The weight of my own chest on me was causing me to not be able to breathe. I would wake up gasping, not breathing. And I would also started having symptoms like blackouts for short periods of time. I don't know what was going on with my health because I refused to go to the doctor for about, I don't know how many years it was, but several years, because I didn't want them to talk to me about my weight. I didn't want to be chastised. I knew they wouldn't understand the compulsive overeating, so I avoided that. So for whatever reason, I was having these blackouts, and finally Mike said, "Listen, we have to do something." I don't think he cared about my weight. He loved me anyway, but he said, "We have to do something. You're going to die." And of course, I was in a really funky space mentally. In fact, I had said, "I don't care if I die. I'm not living anyway." I was just existing, and I thought I meant that, but he finally talked me into going and getting my blood pressure taken, and it was so high. It was in that upper end of the range, the stroke. You could have a heart attack at any time. You know, probably I should have gone right to the hospital, in fact, but it was such a wake up call for me. When I looked down and I read what was beside of the blood pressure and what it said for that range, it said extreme risk for stroke. And I thought, what if I did have a stroke? This is a real possibility. I mean, my health is really to the point I might have a stroke. There is so much that I would miss. I'm either going to be a burden because my family has to take care of me and I'm already not contributing to life, or I'm going to pass away and I'm not going to be there for my daughters and my husband. And I started to think about all the things that I would miss in their lives. And I just decided, yes, I have to do something. So we had done low carb before, back in the 90s, early 2000s. We had done Atkins. And what I remembered about that was that I could eat a lot of food and I still lost weight. And I had been on Atkins and lost 80 pounds back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it didn't help with my eating disorder at the time, because I still binged. I still took cheat days. So I really thought that this was just a quick way maybe that I could drop some weight. So my husband was browsing social media and he was looking for support groups for me to help me because I was at home all the time. I wasn't working. I wasn't driving. And I really didn't leave the house. So he was looking for something for me and he found a page called Ketogenic Success and he added me to it. And I kind of got obsessed with the page. I kept spending a lot of time there and I was reading and I was learning. At the same time, I was doing low carb. I didn't exactly know what that meant. When I had done it before, it was not exactly ketogenic. Basically, it was lowering carbs and ingredients didn't matter. Our first low carb meal was a 30 pack of chicken nuggets. And I felt like that was so much better. And even with that, I started to lose weight. But as I studied and my weight was dropping in those first couple months, um, I realized that keto was different and I adjusted my fat and my protein ratios. And then it was amazing. My hunger went away. And I can't say that has ever happened in my entire life. That driving compulsive need for hunger, to eat all the time, even when I wasn't hungry, I didn't feel that, I think, for the first time since childhood. It was a new thing for me, and I was feeling better. I literally was feeling better. I was getting up, I was getting ready, I was leaving the house a little bit, and 2 months went by and I didn't binge or purge. And for me, that was huge. Even after all the times of being in the hospital and getting professional treatment, I had never gone for 2 whole months and not binged and purged since age 11. And so I realized there was something different about this ketogenic lifestyle versus the low carb diet that I'd done in the past. And I was sort of obsessed with finding out more. That was 3.5 years ago, and it's kind of led me to this place of continuous research. And over that time, I've learned more and more, and I've gotten physically, mentally, spiritually better and better and better. And now I'm just completely honored to be able to use what was the worst thing in my life, the worst, terrible situation that I would never, ever wish on anyone. That's being used now to help other people. And there's nothing more satisfying than that. I really do feel like now I'm living in my purpose. So ketogenic lifestyle has really changed everything for me.
What is it you think that is different about keto that sort of made that difference for you?
I think it's two things. When I did a low carb diet in the past, I specifically did Atkins or other times just did low carb. When I did those years ago, there was no focus on ingredients. I was still consuming some amounts of sugar, large amounts of products. I remember we used to eat like the low carb ice cream. The ingredients in that are kind of garbage. There's a lot of chemicals and things like that, especially back then. They didn't even have the sweeteners that they have now. We ate a lot of that stuff. I was still eating wheat. I would eat low carb wraps. So as long as it was low carb, it was okay. As long as it was helping me lose weight, it was okay. And the biggest difference, well, really, there's two. Ingredients matter, and being focused on eliminating those things that I was particularly addicted to was very, very helpful in stopping the binging. I had never eliminated that. Not to mention, I don't think I ever felt what it was like to eat foods that didn't cause me to be inflamed. Even when I was low carb and I lost weight, I was still inflamed. I know that because on keto, I went down a shoe size. And I've been thin before, but my feet have always been the same size. Literally, there was inflammation in me I'd never experienced when you remove those foods that create inflammation, like sugar and wheat and grains. It felt better. And then from a mental standpoint, the fat, the high fat, I grew up in that low fat age. I'm 45, and I grew up in the low calorie, low fat. I remember being on diets where I counted and I never had over 20 fat grams a day. And now I realize that was part of the reason that I think that added to the mental health issues that I struggled with back then because my brain was fat starved. Now I know how good fat is for my brain. But the difference is the high fat content. I couldn't have pictured doing that. I couldn't have pictured doing low carb plus high fat. And I really didn't get the whole idea about ingredients. Those two pieces are what has made the ketogenic lifestyle completely different from just a low carb lifestyle that I had experienced in the past.
It's really amazing how important fats are for the brain and what a difference they make. And I remember on the panel, we were on a panel together at KetoCon, and you were talking about how going off of sugar, it lowers so much of that inflammation so that you can start to think more clearly, have more clarity on your decisions. And I think that's a really great point. And I also think there's a lot of dopamine too
Mm,
that is being provided from really emphasizing, really quality nutrition, really quality protein,
mhm.
just all that functioning, giving your body all those building blocks is so neat. But I loved how you talk about how going off the sugar just gives you that clarity to be able to start seeing
Yeah.
things more clearly and, having those healthy fats too.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that is people say, but how does keto help with recovery other than the fact that it kind of squashes your hunger, which it does. It's so good for your brain. I think I shared on the panel, I have a daughter who has epilepsy. My now 12-year-old daughter has epilepsy. And there were times where she was taking the same medication that I took. I was taking it for mood disorder and mental health issues, and she was taking it for seizures. So it makes sense that a diet that would help her brain would help my brain. If the same meds that help her brain help my brain, then why wouldn't this diet work great for us both? So the high fat, I think my brain just functions in a way that it never has. I had therapy. It's not that keto alone cured me. It's just when all the years of therapy, um, I couldn't apply it to me. I was too much in a fog. It made sense. I understood. I just couldn't apply it to me in my life. The addiction was so big. And with the mental clarity that came from not having the junk food in my system and from my brain operating on fat, I could really see things clearly. I could see things for what they were. I could see the things that I needed to change. I could see my past behaviors and cycles and how they had repeated over time. And ultimately, I was able to get to a place where I said, it doesn't matter how old I am. It doesn't matter how long I've been sick. It doesn't matter how many times I've repeated the same cycle. I don't have to keep doing that. And I don't even think I had the clarity to get to that point. I assumed that I always had to be the way that I'd always been. And this mental clarity is what woke me up to the fact that I could change.
Yeah, I think it's just such a good point, and it's amazing how keto can really get you to that point where you just have more mental strength to kind of evaluate where you're at and support you in making some of those shifts and decisions. And you have quite a story. I mean, I'm gonna tell people to go and listen to your interview on the Keto Savage podcast with Robert Sykes because you really got into your full story there for anyone who wants to go listen to that. It's quite amazing, quite a powerful story. It's just so much emotion that you just listening to what you went through, what you experienced, and I love that you've been able to, turn that around into a positive in helping people now. Do you primarily coach and advise people on keto for their eating disorders?
I do. Um, they typically come to me. I always say clients don't come to me to get their macros evaluated, although I can do that. That's not my passion. People come to me when they're broken. A lot of them have tried a ketogenic diet, but they didn't really get how to do it well or how to do it, or I help them focus on sobriety. And I understand there are many, many schools of thought. There are people out there who are metabolically flexible and they can take days off. They can do things like that. And I think that's a real confusion for people in the eating disorder community because they want to be keto, but they also see all the voices out there saying, yes, but you can do this and you can have a day off and, moderation works. And for us, it doesn't. It's just like every other kind of addiction. You can't engage in the thing that you're addicted to, not even a little bit, not just one day. Because for us, one day always turns into the weekend, and then the weekend turns into the week. And then, it turns into months. For me, it turned into years of just being completely off the rails. And it all starts with that first belief that I can do this in moderation. We're just not people who can. We are wired a little bit differently when it comes to food. And that's not a terrible thing, but it's important for you to know it. And so for us, we are abstainers. And I really help people get around the behaviors that cause you to believe that you need to use food for soothing, whether it's being angry or lonely or tired or celebrating or mourning. When you have used food to soothe all those feelings for your whole life, whenever you feel that feeling, like feeling lonely, your body triggers what feels like hunger because that's always been your response. If eating's always been your response to feeling lonely, then your body says, oh, I know what to do to get you out of your misery of feeling lonely. Eat. So it feels like hunger. It literally feels the same as when your body physically needs food. And so a big part of what I do is help people kind of figure out what is head hunger versus real hunger. And we do a lot of things like we look at their specific individual triggers. This is huge because so many people don't realize why they do what they do. It's about becoming aware of yourself. And it's really about giving people the power of choice again. So for me, once I was clean and clear and free of the food that I was addicted to, I realized I could change. And that's what I do for people. I help them see the cycles that they're repeating and address each one of those things. Every time someone loses their, I call it food sobriety, it's always because they've believed a lie. And we drill deep and we learn and figure out what is the lie they believe, and we confront it with the truth. And we practice that over and over until it becomes their new nature. And that's how people change. I'm so thrilled to say, really, at this point, I've had hundreds of clients. I teach a eating disorders class with Mary Roberts, and we have about 20 people in each class. We're on our 10th class, where we really just teach people. It's not as individual as one-on-one coaching, but we teach people to identify these things and work through the steps of getting sober for life. And that is, it's the most important thing I've done in my life, the work that I'm doing right now. And, I think I don't really go out and try to find people to follow me or to work with. I don't, I think I asked them how they found me, and they say that, well, they Google bulimia and keto, and somehow I show up, or they Google eating disorders and keto, and somehow it shows up. And so for me, I believe those people are divine appointments. They're supposed to be with me, and they come to me, and I think that allows me to fully invest in them because I believe, we're together. It's divinely inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Now, can you tell people maybe a little bit about some of the messaging and some of the work that you've done or that you did kind of on your personal journey, in terms of shifting, some of that inner messaging and that inner dialogue and how important
Mhm.
that is in making some of these changes and, being food sober, as you
Mhm.
say, it's such a big part of it. And I think it's such a part of it that we don't focus on enough. We focus so much on the food and fixing the food.
Right.
And yet that mindset shift is so critical. Hey guys, just taking a really quick break to talk about the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. If you're interested in doing a ketogenic diet for yourself, it's a great place to start. I teach you everything about how to follow a keto diet to get yourself into nutritional ketosis, and it includes 28 days of meal plans. It comes with weekly shopping lists, how to interpret results, how to test yourself, a complete guide to getting started on keto. If you've been keto for a while and you're just not getting the results that you want to in terms of your health or fat loss, or you are brand new to keto, the 20-day challenge is a great option because it also comes with my free coaching and support in our members Facebook group, and you can post any questions that you have about the meal plans, about keto, and I am there supporting you. We have an amazing community in our group. I like to call it the happiest place on earth because everybody in there is so excited about following keto, about having found something that really works well for them, and everyone in there is just so kind, caring, generous, and supportive, and it's a really fun place to be and hang out. So if you'd like more info on it, you can find it at ketogenicgirl.com, and it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge.
It really starts with, I think you have to get a couple of weeks of food sobriety under your belt to be able to see these things clearly. So in the beginning, we focus on the food, but it's basically to get you clear enough so that you can see the truth about your own life. In my sessions, I do ask people to journal. And I think one of the things I ask them in the very beginning is, do you have control when you eat? Do you ever eat when you're not hungry? When you start eating, can you not stop? All those are signs. Or do you eat in secret? All those are signs that you're not in control of your eating situation. I call the eating disorder ED. That's a name that was introduced to me by a therapist many, many, many years ago. But I actually took Ed and made him like a separate identity from me. See, I'd been in 12-step programs before, and they didn't work for me. And the reason why is, every time I would go in there and I would say, I'm Jessica, I'm bulimic. I'm Jessica, I'm bulimic. And that actually drilled into my head that this is who I am. This is a part of my personality. This is something I can't change. And again, the emphasis there was on the fact that you're powerless. And so what I help people work through and what I personally work through is the fact that I am powerless over the fact that my brain might be wired a little bit differently when it comes to food, but I'm not powerless over that voice of sabotage. I'm not powerless over the ability to do something about it. And I think that's where it varies a little bit from 12 steps. So really the steps for me that I went through were journaling. I actually would write letters to Ed saying, you know, Ed, you talk me into these things all the time, and I'm tired of believing your lies. And it's really interesting to go back through my old journals, but it's realizing that you have a voice of sabotage in you. It's not really you. Yes, it's a little part of your brain, but it's that part of your brain that's afraid, that wants to see you fail, that wants to see you not be able to fulfill your purpose. And it holds you back from living the life that you're meant to live. So realizing and recognizing that that voice is there is the first critical piece. And then from there, it's recognizing what are the specific triggers in your life. What are the situations in the past or currently where you tend to overeat, where you tend to eat off plan, where you tend to use food for comfort? And that's huge. People always come to me and say, I don't even know what happened. It was just like a blur. I got up that morning, I intended to eat on plan, and the next thing I knew, I had eaten. It's literally like they went into a daze. And I know what that's like. That's exactly how I used to be. But it's because I didn't slow down the process and figure out what was going on. And that's where the mental clarity comes in. When you know that you're in a situation that triggers you, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a specific situation. I use the example of I have a lot of people who get triggered at work. Either they have someone in their life that's demanding and they stop by their office, and the next thing they know, the person leaves and they binge on a whole bag of nuts. Even if that's keto food, it's not going to serve you well because you're in the binging behavior and you've also taken in way too many carbohydrates, which is not good for your brain either when you're trying to, keep your ketones high. So it's recognizing really specific situations. And for me, I recognize certain people triggered me, certain situations triggered my eating. And I continue to look at that all the time. If I get the urge to eat and I know I'm not truly hungry, what is it about? I stop and I say, what is this? And I trace my thoughts back and I say, this is when the hunger impulse came. And it came when, a certain person called me on the phone and stressed me out. And what happened? I automatically got up and walked to the refrigerator and opened it up. And at first in recovery, I continued to do that. I would go and I would open the refrigerator and then I would close it and I would say, there's nothing in here for me. But my body did still go on autopilot. And it's kind of proof that, we repeat these same things that we've done, even if we've learned a better way when stress comes. So at first, you really do have to focus on, I'm in a situation where I'm likely to hear from the voice of sabotage. And then it's, what is the lie that I believe that gets me to go along with the voice of sabotage? And that's one thing where most of us have the same things in common. The voice of sabotage says it's just for this weekend and you'll get back on plan on Monday. And everybody I talk to has heard that same one. So the voice of sabotage has a handful of lies that he tells, and we believe it. We say, okay, yep, that's right, because we want to engage in our addiction. And of course, then we find that's not the case. Or the voice of sabotage says, you work so hard. You have earned a treat. You deserve this. And we say, yes, yes, I deserve it. And we give in. So the critical part here is realizing that we have to say yes in order to engage in that addiction, which means we actually have the power to say no if we listen and we're aware. So if that sabotaging voice Ed says to me, Jessica, you could eat you could eat this food. You're all by yourself. No one would ever know. And I have to say, yes, that's actually true. I could, but I don't like feeling like a fraud. I felt like a fraud for most of my life because I hid and I ate, and I'm never doing that again. No, I'm not going to do it. There's that moment where you have the power to make a choice, but most people don't realize that moment's there because the whole thing's a blur. It's all about slowing down the process, knowing that you're in a vulnerable place and expecting to hear the voice of sabotage, expecting to hear it suggest food for comfort. And then you have the opportunity to go along with it, or you have the opportunity to say, no, based on my history, what you're telling me is not true. Based on your history, I don't want the consequences that come with actually giving in to the thing that you are suggesting that I do. And really, that's it. I mean, those are the steps, and they start to become natural, and they start to be something you do automatically. And so that's really that's the nuts and bolts of how I work with people. And of course, everybody's situation is very different, and they have different triggers, but everybody has something similar to that. Everyone I've spoken to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I try to talk about self sabotage a lot because I do notice that there's people that I work with that they'll just do keto and they'll lose the weight they want, super easy peasy. And then they're like, tell me how to get into maintenance and stay here. And, there's other clients that they'll lose the weight and they just put it back on no matter what. And I know that there is some element of self sabotage happening there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, are there things that you do to help people allow themselves to get to where they want to get? There's some component there of like self-worth and believing that you're
Yeah,
worthy of
yeah,
getting what you want.
yeah. There's the class that I teach with Mary. There's a whole section. There's a week where we talk about self-worth, self-esteem, self-sabotage. Because what I was describing to you earlier was really Ed sabotage, and there's a difference. Ed is that voice of your addiction, right? That little part of your brain that it just wants to keep you addicted and in it. And that is that, yes, it's a little piece of your brain, but it's not really you. It's not what you want. It's not your desires. It's the voice that wants to keep you sick. Self sabotage is when you hear Ed, you know you're in a danger zone. Ed says, eat the food, it will soothe you, and you know it, and you still say, yes, I'm going to eat the food. That is self sabotage, and there's a difference. And so when you start to think about why do I do that, and that was a huge, huge part of my process. Um, it was. I always get kind of, I guess, choked up when I say this because this is the truth. Um, when I really thought about why I self sabotaged, why do I continue to repeat this cycle even though I know it doesn't serve me well? It really was because it was a matter of self worth. I didn't believe that I was worthy of getting well. I just believed that I was inferior because I had a disorder. I believed that I was doomed to repeat the same things. It's really what I believed. And I had to confront that lie. The truth is, we all have worth. because we were created. I mean, every single one of us is different. I mean, there's proof of that. There's scientific proof. We all have different fingerprints. There's not a person ever that was born or will be born that has the same set of fingerprints. Why? I think that's a sign to show us we're all that different. We all have a different purpose, and our value comes from the fact that we have a purpose only we can fulfill. No one else can do it for us. And when you realize you were created with purpose, and it's not based on striving, and it's not based on appearance, and it's not based on popularity, then you start to realize that you don't have to focus on the things that make you popular or the things that wear you out just to please other people. And you want to get well because you want to pursue that. You want to find out what your purpose is. And I find when you're well, when you get clear of this, when you're not body obsessed, you're not self obsessed, you're not numbers obsessed, your purpose will be revealed to you. And obviously, in my story, this is it. When you get to the point where you can say, I wouldn't even go back and change things. I used to say, oh man, I wish I had known about keto. I wish I had been free when I was 11. Or I wish at 20 I had learned this and known this. I used to always say that. Now I say, I wouldn't change anything. Every single thing that I went through led me to this. I could not help anybody else if I went back and erased those things. I wouldn't have the empathy, and I wouldn't have the understanding. And so everything that I have gone through up through recovery has led me to where I am right now. And I'm still on the journey. But I think our worth has to come from the fact we know and believe we have an individual purpose. And I think people who are depressed, people who use food for comfort and to stuff down their feelings, they don't know that. They don't believe that they have a purpose. And purpose is it's a very deep thing. It's something that drives you every day. And if you don't have that, it's easy to just get lost in wanting popularity and appearance and the perfect weight. And you mentioned those clients who get to a certain weight and then they rebound. And I would suggest that most of them probably have some version of an eating disorder. And in their mind, the whole time that they're doing this thing, they're doing keto, they're changing their body. They believe that when they get to their goal weight, they are going to be well. Like they are somehow magically not going to be a food addict. And then because they're at their goal weight, they can eat certain things in moderation. And the truth is, some of us can't. Some of us have to be sober. We have to be abstinent from those things. And so I think and I've seen that. I've seen people get to their ideal weight and then rebound. And it's because they haven't dealt with the emotional stuff. They haven't dealt with that false belief that just getting to my weight is going to address the reason that I got fat in the first place. It's not going to. There's a reason that we became overweight in the first place. And for those of us who have some eating disorder issues, then it's because we use food to soothe. They're going to continue to do that even after they get to their goal weight if they haven't addressed it.
Yeah, it's amazing how important the mindset and the emotion and understanding self-sabotage or ed sabotage and all of this, how hugely important it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow a meal plan and get results, but it's really about making those shifts and doing that kind of emotional work. If that is where you're coming to this from, if you're coming to keto because of eating disorders or food addiction, which is my background, like I love how you talk about food sobriety and being food sober. And it's such a challenging thing for a lot of us because, with alcohol or drugs, it's very well understood whether you're sober or you're not, like which kind of path you're walking. But food is something that's always present. It's always there. And sometimes it seems as though our whole society is using food in different ways, and then there's like holidays and there's celebrations, and there's all these ways that food and drink, are used in ways on a regular basis in a way that's very normalized. And then if you decide you're stepping away from that, it really can be isolating, because you're the one person who's like, oh,
Right.
I don't want to have sugar. I don't want to eat these things. I don't want to, have alcohol at this event. And I'm the only one, and I'm like on the outs because I want to be sober. And it's very challenging to be in that position when food is not
Right.
considered like a substance that can be abused. That's super isolating, for people. And that, I love how you brought up the abstainer moderator thing, because I talk about that a lot too, that there's abstainers and moderators. And for me, coming from food addiction, I found perfect abstinence is so much easier for me than moderation. But for moderators, if you tell them they can never, ever, ever have a cookie again with regular sugar in it, it'll drive them crazy. And so it's interesting, to me, those dynamics, and just being food sober and having that sobriety and being able to, enjoy food as nourishment instead of as using it sort of as
Yeah.
a self-soothing mechanism.
Ed uses the way society views food against us. He will say, of course you can eat off plan today. It's a holiday, right? Every commercial tells you, your Aunt Susie tells you, your mom tells you, today take a break. You don't have to do that today. And I think they wouldn't say it to an alcoholic. And I think that's because if you don't have a problem with food addiction, you don't understand how it starts a cycle. And it's not even just a cycle of overeating or indulging, it's reintroducing foods back to your body that are going to harm your ability to think clearly. And it also hurts us emotionally when we go into a situation, we say, I'm not going to eat off plan, and then we do anyway. That beats up our self-esteem. And again, then you need more soothing. So Ed says, hey, you need soothing. You're all beat up. And then we begin to indulge. It starts this crazy cycle. But I think, you mentioned the difference in alcohol and, drug abuse and food. Food is the acceptable drug. It is. And in fact, it's almost a joke. Like, people talk about Thanksgiving, they say, well, I'm going to wear my fat pants, or I'm going to wear my stretchy pants. The expectation is you are going to binge eat, most likely on unhealthy foods that day,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's what it's about. It is no longer about, let me be thankful for my life and my purpose. And I remember going through those first holidays, with this coming up holiday season will be my fourth set of holidays on keto, but the first one, I was really not treated well. And I think part of it was my history. My family had seen me do many different diets. And even by the time the holidays had rolled around, I was almost a year keto. They just assumed I would take that day off. And so, like, I did feel ostracized, but one thing that I noticed that was positive was my interactions and the conversations and everything that I did have on that first Thanksgiving, they were better than any I ever had at any family holiday. I think I could see what other people were doing. We would go and everybody would pig out, and then people retreat to a chair and pass out, only to rest up for the next meal. And I think we never really treasured that time or had interactions that were meaningful. And what I came to understand is, one, my sobriety is my own. No one else has to approve. Pleasing someone else and giving up my freedom from addiction is not an option. Two, I understand where they come from. They don't get it. They don't know that they're offering something that is harmful to me. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make us feel good. If you go into a situation with your family and you're looking longingly at the cheesecake and saying, oh, yeah, I can't have that, then what are they going to do? they're going to come to the rescue and say, here, they'll cut some, they'll put on your plate, here, have it, feel better. But if you go in confident and saying, no, I don't eat sugar anymore, I gave that up and I feel so much better, who's then going to say, have it anyway? You going in there and making it clear that it's your choice and this is the life you want versus something that's thrust upon you. Oh, I can't eat that because I have an eating disorder. I can't eat that because I'm keto. No, I choose to cut out grains and sugars and I feel amazing and I don't want to lose that. You do not get much flack from that. Because who's going to say, what kind of person's going to say to you, well, I think you should eat it anyway? They kind of leave you alone. So you can set yourself up for better success during those occasions. You could also realize I get to see and feel and experience what this occasion's really about. Thankfulness, gratitude when it comes to Thanksgiving. The interactions I have are more valuable, and this time together is so much more meaningful than the food that we're having in our stomach. And when I say Ed can use the holidays, he does that in a number of ways. He'll say, well, it's of course it's Thanksgiving, of course it's Christmas, but I have people that will say, well, I want to wait till after the holidays to start. I'm going to get clean after the holidays. And that's a lie. That is Ed, because there's always something. Every single day, it's somebody's birthday. It's someone's anniversary. It's a family get together. It's a reunion. It's nonstop. It's vacation. It's if you think you're going to wait until after life circumstances to get sober, that time never comes. And many people have found the greatest success beginning during the most challenging times. Our first eating disorders class we taught was the week of Thanksgiving. And it got so full we had to do a second class because we keep them small. And I was kind of amazed by that. But it was all the people that realized, you know what, I have been clean on keto for maybe a couple months, and Thanksgiving could totally derail me. I need help. And that's for them to be able to get through that first holiday. It becomes it's like you get handed a chunk of confidence. And then when the next holiday comes around, you're like, look, I got this chunk of confidence. I know what to do. And it's not a stressful thing. And then you make it through Christmas. And then you've got more confidence for making it through. And then when New Year's comes, you're like, not a chance. I got this. And then, Valentine's and everything else. Every time you make it through one of those situations where everybody expects you to eat, you know that you can do it. You know that you're capable of. You've proved it to you. So when the voice of sabotage comes and says, it's vacation, take the week off, you can say, get lost. Because you know what? 20 vacations in a row, you told me that. And it took me months to get back on track, or years in my case. I don't do that anymore. And I think it just gives you ammunition. Making it through gives you ammunition to get through those things for the next time.
Yeah, that is so well said. And holidays are such a double whammy because you don't just have all this sort of binging, like you said, and overeating and all of this incredible food, but you're also surrounded by a lot of people, and a lot of people that might be like pushing some of your buttons. And, it's sometimes, those really close relationships and being around people all the time, that can be triggers, so it's like, you're just kind of, between a lot of obstacles there. And I really understand why so many people struggle with those occasions. And I love all the advice that you have. Like, one thing that I found really helpful for me is to have like keto substitutions and treats, even though I don't really eat those very often throughout the year. I find having those during that time is so important. But I also love how you brought up the aspect of connection. And we talked about this a little bit on our panel. I think you brought it up, and I think Kaven brought it up, how, addiction and connection, they have such a strong relationship, and that often, what we're replacing with that addiction or food or whatnot is a lack of connection, and how you can be aware of that and be mindful of that when you are at those celebratory or special occasions to focus on connection and how good it feels to just connect with like even just one person in a new way, instead of, like you said, just gorging on all this food and then going over to your chair and sitting there, um, and just being so focused on the food, but being more focused on presence and just connecting with people there, even if it's just one person. At our last family gathering, like 4th of July, I spent a bunch of time talking to my husband's uncle, and like we had a really nice time. Like we really connected, and I don't ever talk to him like that. We never really sat down together, but that was something that was like on my mind, that I wanted to partake in that connection. So I love that you brought that up too.
Well, when you're not so focused on the food, and I agree with you, I don't have for me, a bunch of replacement foods is not something that serves me well now. It can be a trigger, but at holidays, I make them, I take them, I bring them, I give myself permission to have it if I want it. And then you choose to or not to. But that was, especially in the beginning, really important to me to have an option. But the other thing that you said was, we're surrounded by triggers many times. So when I'm working with a client or we're working with one of our groups and holidays coming up, we like to say, look back at previous holidays, look at your eating, look at the situations, the conversations you had with people. Think about what people are food pushers. Think about what people are triggers for you. What are the things that lead you to eat? If you can anticipate that ahead of time, and a lot of times we really do know. We know exactly the things that trigger us. We know the people who do. And it doesn't mean we don't love them, but they do. It's they trigger us because we disagree. Lots of things come up over the table sometimes that really shouldn't get discussed at the table, but they do anyway. If you know that triggers you, you can practice for it. You can say, I'm not going to talk about that today. I just want to focus on being thankful. And most people aren't used to you saying things like that, but it works. You're creating boundaries that you've never had. And you're only able to do that because you looked back at your history and you've anticipated what's coming in, in past. And so you can redirect conversation. You don't have to sit there and get involved in something heated if it's then going to drive you to eat. Your eating should still be something that gives you joy. I think that's why we were created with all these amazing taste buds, right? I mean, if food was only fuel, because people like to say that food is fuel, and it is, but I think we were meant to enjoy it too. And there's nothing wrong. You should never feel guilty about choosing to have, something like a keto sweet on a holiday, um, if you want to. You make your choices for you, but there should never be a guilty feeling attached to eating. If there is, there's something going on there, and that's something that you need to work through. But yes, anticipating ahead of time those potential triggers and making a plan for them is really, really important to getting through those first holidays. Having something available for you to eat in case physically your cravings are very, very strong and there isn't something healthy available is such a smart thing. But as years go by, I find less and less need to, justify myself in any way. If there isn't a keto treat there, it doesn't matter to me. But that happens over time. There's layers of sobriety. We don't just get clean and then everything's perfect. We learn from our mistakes. At first, I learned to not eat off plan. That was the first step of food sobriety. It was not eating things that had sugar and wheat and grains and things in them that were harmful for my health. Then the next layer was, how do I not overeat keto foods? How do I not binge eat? How do I not use food to soothe my emotions? But I had to get through that first layer before I can move to those. And I think everybody will find themselves on that journey. And I still like to consider myself on my journey. I think that voice of sabotage now for me comes in the form of attacking self-esteem sometimes. My I think that it can't really attack my worthiness because I truly do believe now I have purpose, but it can attack self-esteem. I have loose skin. I lost 135 pounds on keto. And I know weight is the first thing most people usually talk about. And like eventually it comes up with me, I think, sometimes. But honestly, it's like in compared to the freedom with the food and from taking all those meds that I don't have to take anymore and all these health issues, like weight is like, oh yeah, and I lost weight. But I have loose skin and that's hard for me. And I think that voice of sabotage works in that way, like, oh, this is not like you don't look as good as this person. He uses comparison. So it moves beyond just the food into then attacking your self-esteem. And I think that as you move through these layers of sobriety, that's one of the layers. And if you get too stuck in that, it can bring you back into your addiction because you'll want to soothe. So you have to continue to fight that voice of you're not good enough, or the way you are is not enough, or you're not allowed to celebrate where you are in your recovery because you still have a ways to go. And so many people derail because they listen to the voice of sabotage then. And we have to constantly stay aware when we're wired that way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you brought up so many great points in there. I want to leave our audience with some tips maybe that you have for anyone who's kind of maybe in the thick of it right now and, really they've come to some awareness that this is going on. They're looking into keto. Like, what are some tips or advice that you would have for someone who's been struggling for a long time, maybe with some disordered eating or just with, you know, wanting to get food sober?
Yeah, number one thing is no matter what age you are, no matter how sick you've been, no matter how, the depths of your sickness, it is never ever too late for you to change. You can get better. And a ketogenic lifestyle is a great way to get there. You do need to work through things, but keto is part. If you want to heal, you're looking in the right place to heal your body and your mind. And that's going to make you better able to handle that. The second biggest thing is don't make this thing complicated. So many people that could get well from eating a ketogenic diet, they take one look at all the different voices in the keto community and they look at all the different macro calculators and they look at all these things and they think, this is too complicated. I can't live this way in real life. Don't do that. It does not have to be complicated. I personally did not track macros for the entire 135 pounds I lost. I got a food list that was decent, a food list that eliminated things that caused inflammation. It eliminated all types of sugars. And I kept it as simple as at first, I'm only going to eat things on here. If it's not on here, I'm not going to eat it. And it was as simple as that. And that was good to have as a guideline. And then it became about, all right, well, let me make sure I'm not eating a ton of carbs. Which of these vegetables are the lowest carbs? And I would eat more of those. And then I started to realize as I studied that I needed more fat. And as I added more fat, my overall carb and protein intake went down. And that's how I realized this high fat ratio was the thing that helped me the most. But but that happened in stages. It's just about starting and having the faith that because other people like me and other people in the community have gotten well, you can too. There's nothing special that I didn't have any extra help. There was nothing, there wasn't a resource that made me more able to do this than you are. You can do it. You are not by yourself. The craziest things you've ever done with food that you would die for anybody to know, we've done it too. You are not by yourself. So don't be afraid. Go to someone, get a resource, find your people, find your tribe, find a community of people who will embrace you. And I cannot tell you what a relief it is to finally be able to let go of the shameful things that we have inside and not only just be able to let them go and say them, other people say, me too. And you just feel like all the hiding is unnecessary then, and all the secretiveness is unnecessary. So keep it simple. Start keto. It's the right way to eat to get better, and find a support group for you.
Oh, that's such great advice. And where can people find more about you online and find more about your group and your coaching and all that you provide?
Sure. I work for Keto Evangelist, as I mentioned earlier. All of our coaching services are listed at ketoevangelistcoaching.com. You'll see everyone's profile there. You can click mine or anyone else's. I really encourage people to click on everyone and read them all. I really only want to help people who are meant to be with me. And I think everybody connects with someone. So, I love obviously helping people, but if you connect with a different coach because you read their story and you say, that's just like me, that's who you should have. But ketoevangelistcoaching.com. And then on Facebook and Instagram, I'm Coach Jessica, and it's Jessica, JessYca. Some people say they can't find me because my name is spelled different, but I would love to talk to anyone. I'd love to point you towards help or resources if I could. And I am working on a book, so I hope that'll be out maybe. I don't know. I'm scared to put a time frame on it, but I'm working on it. And hopefully that's going to be a good resource for people in the future.
That's awesome. No, I love your name. It makes you distinct, and really makes you stand out with the Y in there. It's always easy for me to find you when I'm looking you up. But thank you so much for being here, sharing all of this, Jessica. You shared so much beautiful, valuable advice for people listening who, will resonate so much with your message and so many of your experiences. And I really thank you for being here and taking the time to share all that you did with us today.
And thank you so much. I'm just grateful anytime I have the opportunity to have a platform to share the hope that I have for people. People just need hope again.
Oh, I agree. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode with Jessica. I really loved having her on. I loved getting to meet her in person in Austin at KetoCon, and I really hope that you got some, takeaways or just enjoyed listening to her story, talking about what she's been through and getting to know Jessica a little bit more. So it's really great having her on the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to try keto out with me as your coach and as your support, go to ketogenicgirl.com and check out the Ketogenic Girl Challenge program. It comes with meal plans. It comes with my support and coaching to answer any questions that you have about doing keto, specifically for fat loss, for optimizing body composition, for getting stronger. But my plans are really designed for fat loss without any exercise required, and really toning and tightening up the body just through keto and diet without any exercise required. So feel free to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook if you have any questions about the program, or send me an email. Until next week's episode, I hope you guys have a fat-filled rest of your week. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risks or that are incompatible with the ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian.